Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. On today's show, we're talking about a morning aftershock. Now, we're not talking about an earthquake. This is the morning after the City of Nashville voted in a 34% property tax increase. You're probably thinking, I'm glad I don't live in Nashville. Well, folks, this could be a wake-up call for cities all over the world. There are a couple of vitally important questions we need to answer on today's show. Number one, are the issues that triggered such a massive tax increase unique to Nashville, or do they exist elsewhere? And number two, what will be the impact to Nashville, the local economy, the price of real estate, and the growth that the city's been experiencing over the past decade? So why did Nashville face such a massive tax increase? City Council voted 32-8 to approve an alternate budget proposed by Councilmember Bob Mendes after a night of several bailed budget proposals. The mayor had proposed a budget that called for a 32% tax increase. That motion was defeated. Over the course of a 9.5-hour meeting, the City Council weighed 4 different budget proposals, each of which called for a significant tax increase. And I put a link to the YouTube video that shows the entire 9.5-hour council meeting in the show notes. At the root of the tax increase was a threatening letter from the state of Tennessee's financial controller. The letter said in plain terms that if the city didn't put enough money in its rainy day funds, the state would come in and take over the city's finances. The state said that the failure to act would be considered a surrender of responsibility to govern, which would trigger the state taking over the management of the city. Clearly, this is an issue that's been brewing for a few months. The new budget faced calls for defunding the police department and redirecting funds to community outreach. And in the end, the full police budget was approved, plus a bit more to hire additional 48 police officers. City Council, in a surprise move, approved a plan early on Wednesday morning to reroute $8.2 million from the school's district savings into a contingency fund to pay for teacher salary increases. The budget shortfall was ultimately caused by a tornado back in March and the COVID-19 outbreak. In over a 16-month period, it's estimated to result in a $470 million shortfall. Now, we talked about cities facing financial shortfalls due to COVID-19 on this podcast back on June the 2nd. It was predicted to be a factor affecting revenue in many cities. And it seems now that reality is upon us, at least in Nashville. The new budget, which includes the massive tax increase, is the first tax increase in Nashville since 2012. The problem with this tax increase, of course, is that the city can't truly count on receiving all that revenue. At a certain point, families on fixed incomes won't have the extra cash to fork out. Remember, property taxes are indexed to property value, and over the past decade, property values have increased dramatically in Nashville, as they have in cities all over North America. As property values increase, so too does the amount of tax collected. Now, real estate investors who own rental property sign loan covenants that require them to maintain a minimum debt coverage ratio. The property tax increase will cause tens of thousands of property owners into a technical default situation with their lenders, whereby they're no longer in compliance with the terms of their loans. Now, that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to lose the property, but it means they are in fact in technical default. And then there will be those who truly can't afford the increase. They will eventually lose the property to foreclosure, or at the tax sale for non-payment of taxes. The new rate is at $4.22 per $100 of assessed value, one of the highest in the country. We've also seen cases where properties that face high property taxes have in fact fallen in value. Some high-tax locations, like Chicago, have experienced this phenomenon. The city can only try to increase taxes to a point. There's only so much money available in the general population. Now, Nashville is one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S., at least it has been over the last 5 years. It's been receiving an average of 120 new residents per day moving into the city. And with all that growth comes additional infrastructure costs, but also additional revenue. Of course, this rate of population growth declined during the pandemic. So there's this revenue shortfall. Where's it coming from? Well, it's coming from the lower usage fees. People aren't signing up for recreational events. They're not paying for access to the city-owned swimming pools. The libraries are closed and they're not collecting late fees. In many city budgets, these fees account for a significant percentage of the total budget. And while Nashville was one of the first cities to process such a massive tax increase, I believe this is a phenomenon that's going to repeat itself all over North America. As you think about that, pay very close attention to what's happening at City Council. Have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.